everybody, my name is BJ Viau.
I'm Seth Rotberg, and we are the advocates.
Advocates, whatever that means. But we were kind of coined with this topic of advocacy and the value of your voice. So for the next, 30 minutes or however long we end up talking, we're going to share a little bit about our backgrounds. And it's always hard when you're doing a breakout. You don't know how many people are going to show up, what their backgrounds are, what they want to advocate for, what they want to learn. So Seth and I are going to share a little bit of how we've advocated, and these are just our personal examples of what we've done in our HD journey. And then we actually kind of want to propose a little bit of like, why did you pick this session? Why are you here? And let's kind of workshop and just talk about maybe something that you wanted to learn more about versus us just giving you a bunch of presentation slides and talking at you. We really want to make this a conversation. That sound good? Cool. If you said no, I don't know what I would say. There's the door. There's 3 other sessions you can choose. But as I said, my mom had Huntington's disease. Similar to some of the answers and questions that were shared earlier, my parents decided to tell my sister and I right away. So she got diagnosed, and I think probably a few days later, they sat my sister down at the age of 9 and 10 and told us right away. And I think that changed the trajectory of where I'm at today and how I deal with Huntington's, is because I've just had normalcy in Huntington's. It's just always been in my life. We started right away, but we got involved. So we got involved in Minnesota, where we're at, in the Huntington's Disease Society of America chapter. We started hosting these basketball fundraisers. It's just what my family was into. We raised, a couple $100s the first year, a couple $1,000s the next year. We held these events for about 15 years. And that was our way, similar to what Anthony said, like, that was the way for us to tell the community, not just, hey, help us raise money, but this is my mom. So like the police department, started, and they would like call us. They'd be like, some lady's drunk. And then we educated her. It's like, no, just my mom. She has Huntington's disease. So that just became normal for our community and our town. And, it was always awkward giving, someone with Huntington's and in Korea a hug, but it became normal for people. Like, people didn't see Huntington's disease. They saw Debbie. And they really wanted to just love and help and support Debbie. So that's what the Hoopathon gave us. From the Hoopathon, though, I had the opportunity to meet some individuals from around the world, and we started the Huntington's Disease Youth Organization. So the shirt, Zach, you had on, and the camps. If you really want the
Shrinking Violet, he doesn't call for
exactly, I might buy that shirt because I don't have any of these. I don't have any of those shirts anymore.
It's a nice shirt. It's wonderful material, too.
Good shirt.
I love that shirt.
Exactly. So I used to house those in my, garage, my car trunk. But it was a lot of fun to grow the Huntington's Disease Youth Organization from really an idea into something it is today. And I'm not involved with HDO anymore, and I think that's always like the best sign of something, is you can help grow it, you can build it, and you can step away. And people like Jenna and the many other volunteers can take it and grow it even further. So total blessing. From HDO, I had the opportunity to find a career in the pharmaceutical industry. So I was talking about the Hoopathons at a conference, and this pharma company that had a treatment for a chorea called Lundbeck came and said, hey, we could have you come and you could do some marketing, you could do some advocacy for us. That's where I started my professional career out of college. I've been an active participant in any observational trial I can participate in, from Enroll to Clarity to Prevent to anything that's out there. I try to raise my hand and participate. Seth and I'll let Seth, you can dive into this more when I pass it over to you, but we co-led a listening session with the Food and Drug Administration in 2020, was it 22 that was? So we had the opportunity, along with 6 other individuals, to speak at the FDA and share the stories of being at risk or living with the Huntington's gene before symptoms ever occur, trying to get them to understand what we as young people need in clinical research. I'm the current founder, as I said earlier, of Huntington's Disease Genetics. So this idea actually came out of the Huntington's Disease Youth Organization, where I realized that young people were having an issue getting genetic testing across the United States. So built that. It's been going for 2 years. It's been a great experience. I have a full-time employee who's a genetic counselor, and we're coming up on our 500th individual who started the process with us. So it's really grown leaps and bounds over the past year and a half. And then professionally now, I work at a pharma company called Amgen, but have no ties into Huntington's disease. So Huntington's is kind of my side hustle, hobby, my fun, my passion, and I have this other job over here that pays the bills and keeps me busy.
And say it in the camera, disclaimer,
Disclaimer, yes. compliance, whatever. But I'll pass over to my good friend. Seth and I actually met at the Huntington's Disease Society of America convention in Minneapolis in 2010.
2011.
Sorry, it's close. It's like getting our anniversary wrong if you're married. So sorry, dude.
We'll talk about this in the car.
But yeah, it was, it's to me the biggest value of the Huntington's community and coming to these events is Seth. Seth and other people, they become your lifelong friends. It was, I think, Saturday night late, and someone's like, BJ, Seth, have you guys met each other? You have very similar stories, which you can see, and Seth will talk about his bullets are very similar to mine. And for 10 years we've been good friends, and to the point of he flew into Charlotte, that's where I live, and we hung out last night with my son and drove here this morning, and I think that's the positives of what Huntington's can bring you.
Yeah, his son beat me in scooter racing.
Yeah, don't tell mom we were racing scooters downtown like those birds, and I had my son on the front, and we were a little dangerous, but it was a good time.
It was fun.
Yeah,
he liked it. So,
good time.
So a little bit about myself. Very similar story to BJ. So I learned about Huntington's disease. My mom was officially diagnosed when I was in high school. Misdiagnosed for the first 5 to 7 years with major depression, mood swings. We actually found out we had to bring her to a mental institute to really get these tests done because we didn't know what it was. My mom was the first in our family to have it. So when I was in high school, trying to fit in with your peers, and you have a parent who's sick, they don't really understand it. So I was in denial for the first couple of years until going to college, realizing I was at risk and I had a 50-50 chance of inheriting it. And decided when I was a sophomore and at the age of 20 to test. I found out I carried the gene, and that was kind of like, okay, what do I do next? Who do I tell, and how do I live my life? I'm a big planner, so that's why I wanted to plan for my future. I know it's a very personal decision, of course, to test, because once you do it, you can't go back. But I decided to use it as motivation to get more involved, and so that's what started with getting involved and hosting these fundraisers similar to BJ, except it was a 3-on-3 basketball charity event. To then joining the HCSA Massachusetts chapter and the National Youth Alliance, to then becoming the president of them, kind of following into his footsteps of what he has done. BJ and I did meet 2011, the last night of the convention, and we learned that we just had very similar stories, both like basketball, had these basketball fundraisers, both our moms, her name were Debbie. He could dunk, I almost could dunk, it's very similar.
You could slap the backboard, right?
Yeah, I can slap the backboard and can't anymore, but I think that's what kind of fueled me, was having someone I could also look up to, someone that kind of helped me out along my own kind of journey. Fast forward a little bit, I got involved with HDO, was at one point on their board, but had the opportunity to do a TED Talk on my own story in 2018, which really actually changed my career path in healthcare. I was in youth development work, doing a lot of work with under-resourced communities at the high school level, to then saying I want to work in healthcare professionally. And that's what led me eventually to a career which I started last year at Prilenia, doing patient advocacy work. But all throughout that time, HT of course has always been a big part of my life. It doesn't define my life, and I'm learning that, but it does play a role on how those next steps look. As part of that, there's a couple parts. One is participating in research, observational studies. I've participated in Enroll. I've participated in an exercise study. I've participated in, predict/prevent, which involves MRI imaging and, spinal tap, giving blood. Unfortunately, being at the stage of my HT journey, being considered pre-symptomatic, I don't qualify for any studies. Would I participate? I'm going to say 99% yes. Depends on a few things, such as, understanding what does it entail. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to do what I can with what's in my control. That also included doing a patient listening session to really understand this pre-symptomatic patient community and how we do want to participate now. We don't want to wait until we're sick, because by that point it may be too late to treat us. And that's all me speaking personally, and disclaimer, right? Because I do work at a company now, but in all reality, personally speaking, I think we do need to look at treating earlier. How we get there, that's going to take a village of us discussing it and figuring out what's meaningful for the community to really get to that next step. But that's a little bit about me, my story. I live in Chicago now, have a dog. He's awesome. He's the best napper in the world, and I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Seth. And I'm really happy I wrote Seth's bullets and he did not correct me. So I know you pretty well if I got all your stuff right.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some typos in there, but
yeah.
one of the things though, Seth and I would talk about Huntington's all the time. And one of the things a couple of years ago, which sparks a little bit about our passion today, is Seth was on a lot of podcasts. He was telling his story. He was using his voice left and right. And he had a continuous message that I kind of nitpicked him on, in a sense, in a big brother fashion. And Seth, you kept saying, do you remember what you kept saying?
Yeah, I'd be like, like everything's good now. You got to stay positive and take things like one day at a time. Something along those lines, right?
Yeah, it was like, I have Huntington's, but I'm okay. Don't worry about me, people. And he was, talking in front of pharmaceutical companies, and you were doing podcasts. And I said, you got to stop saying that, because you're giving people this sense that they don't need to do anything. There's no action they have to take. Because if you're good, then I'm good, dude. Like, no issue there. And we really worked on changing Seth's story to say, like, I know I'll get Huntington's one day, and I'm okay today, but I'm not going to be okay tomorrow if you or you or you or you or we don't do something about it. And I think the first people we looked in the mirror to say that to was ourselves. So we started saying, what can we do? Like, there's this easy, like, even you all in the room could be like, well, I don't need to use my voice, because like, you guys up there, you guys are doing great. So if you just keep doing what you guys are doing, I'll just sit back and live my life. And I think we all have to look in the mirror and say, I need to do something myself. And then that was what really led to the FDA patient listening session. Like, no one guided us. No one told us, hey, you need to go to the FDA. No one gave us instruction manual to say this is how it's done. It's like, we went online. We saw some form. We saw some other conditions that had done this before. And one night, I think we're like, let's just press submit and see what happens. And
just press submit.
And we pressed submit. And it's not like we moved a mountain, but we did something. And we felt like we made a big enough difference to try the next thing and the next thing. So that's really just Seth and I's story. We're not telling everybody they need to move a mountain. We're not telling everybody they need to go talk to the FDA. We're not telling everybody they need to start a fundraiser or create a nonprofit. But I think everybody has that voice in them, that story in them, and we can use that in many different ways. So to go to that, I'm going to spin it back to you, and I'm going to ask everybody in the room, like, why did you choose this session today? There's other sessions. Like, do you feel like you want to use your voice in a unique way? I know I'm calling on everybody too. And Beth, you're first, so you're right in line. But just curious, maybe we can go around the room and just share. And maybe you're just like, I don't know, default. This was the only session I felt like I was coming into. But are we open to sharing? And Beth, you got to go first because you sat in front. Maybe that's why.
I don't know. Just some of the others, I didn't feel like I felt like I'd already had the information I needed on those. I wasn't really sure what this was. So
okay.
Opportunity to learn something.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sure.
Thanks.
I get those emails from the monthly. I hate that word. Advocacy group. And I have not joined any of them. Been doing the local HD support group, but have not started in with that group. So I saw this and I was like, well, maybe that'll have a connection back to the other group, which I want to get it.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I think everyone has a story to tell. Whenever I share bits and pieces, people always say, oh, we should write a book. So I've actually kind of started the process of creating a book about my unique journey. So the purpose, the underlying question when I'm writing this book is like, what is the point? What am I trying to say through this story? And it's the family impact. It's the bigger picture of what HD does, not just to the individual, but how generations before me were impacted. I'm gene negative, so I'm in the clear, but I still feel compelled to share this story because nobody knows it that isn't something in the building right now. And when I try to explain this to my boss, and he's like, "Oh, Huntington's, they have that on Virgin River."
Right.
Well, I saw that on House.
Right.
And I'm like, you don't get it.
Right.
You're not really showing me what it is.
Right.
And so I just kind of feel like,
love it. Cool.
Patty?
Patty?
I was talking to you guys before and told them, no.
I mean, that's true.
I think that every time I go to a conference, I'm fueled with lots of ideas of what I'd like to do as far as advocacy and legislature and all of those things, and I just don't know where to start.
Fair. Cool. Erica?
Well, I have a child with JHD, and because she's a child, nobody wants to do anything for her. So, you know, I've been trying to fight and stuff, and there's, you know, some of us moms, and, you know, I'm here to try to get more ways on how I can fight to get her what she needs.
Kathy?
I think I agree with you. I feel like people just don't get it. You know, like the Virgin River thing. I am glad it's on there because the word got out.
Right.
I'm glad it's on there. They talked about a little bit about not having family, or that's personal choice, but you know that the fertility thing or the having children came up in there. But I'm like you. I don't know where to start. I want to do something to help my children and maybe grandchildren. You know, get better care, know where to go. I just want to know where to start to help.
Awesome. Edgar?
I love learning people's process to how to become empowered ultimately. So
Cool. Rebecca?
I'm on the scientific education side of things, so I mostly meet with physicians and other researchers with HD, so I haven't heard nearly as many patient stories. And being here today, every patient story has been so compelling, so I just need to listen more about patient advocacy. Like, I don't know enough.
Awesome.
I'm just here to support her. So learning this, maybe I can help out as we go along.
Totally.
So kind of like I think Seth was saying, some misdiagnosis happened in my family. They thought my grandfather had Parkinson's, and they were dead set on it, and then the symptoms were not lining up, and so they pretty much go back to square one, tested him for Huntington, he was positive, and I was actually working at a hospital and family medicine clinic at the time, and I casually just threw up to one of my doctors and said, "Oh yeah, like my grandpa tested positive for Huntington's," and he said, "No way, like, that doesn't happen. That is so rare that it," and he was like, "You need to go get tested," but really downplayed like my chance of getting it. And so then, you know, like a month or two later, I came back and I said, "Well, I'm also positive." And he was like, just like the mind blown, like pretty much like an oh shit moment, like exactly like people have it. So.
I think my mom kind of stole my answer.
Come on, Mom.
He's just been following me around.
That's right.
You know, I have a lot of motivation to do stuff and to be an advocate, you know, but I just don't really know where to start, where to put those efforts. You know?
Perfect.
Patient advocacy. All you have to say.
Love it.
So, hi everyone. I lead patient advocacy for our HD program at Sage Therapeutics. So, like my colleague Seth and Edgar. So, I mean, patient voice and the voice of lived experience will drive our work when we're in patient advocacy within a pharmaceutical company. So, it really means everything. That's how we form our work, and also how we think about policy and everything that goes into the treatment for this is the role that I'm in, so I love it.
Jody?
Oh my goodness, helping HD families, so many families, and everybody I meet, everywhere I go, I just want to do what I can to help. And advocacy, I want to be a part of joining all of our forces.
Okay.
Am I good? Okay.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm here to record. Yeah.
But also to learn, of course, from everyone here, your stories. Just learn how HD Reach can help empower you guys.
Cool. Okay. Well, everyone has a voice, right? We force you to talk, and now you know you can do it. And I think one of the hardest parts about advocating is just sometimes we're not comfortable speaking. We're not comfortable speaking in front of people we don't know, but we can all do it. Like, it's all possible. We just proved it. And I think whether you're talking in front of a group of 18 or 1,800 or one person, if it's like a physician you're advocating for, like, we have to use our voice. We have to be confident in sharing how we're feeling. And I guess, is there anything specific? Like, because I think everybody, when they hear advocacy, and I even heard it a little different in your answers, advocacy can be so many things. And advocacy to Edgar is different than advocacy to Seth. And you can advocate on the Hill, but you can also advocate in your doctor's office. So just curious, is there any burning questions that anybody had that we'd want to just tackle right now? Of like, I want to figure out, like Zach, you said, I just don't know where to start.
I mean, like in my area, I don't really know how to start advocating. You know, what sort of opportunities might be available if there are any. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm gonna have to like create opportunities for myself.
Sure. Anyone else? Any other specific questions, or else we can just talk broad and see where it goes. Now everyone went quiet.
We can. Well, Zach did have a question.
I like it. And
do we want to just answer his question, or do we want to?
Yeah, I do. And I'm going to go to the next slide and answer it, because a little bit of, I think when someone, you know, I've talked to many people who are like, I want to get involved. And I think the toughest part is I always look back at that individual, and Zach, I'll look at you and I'll say, how do you want to get involved? Because honestly, you can be an advocate in a lot of different ways. You could write a book. You could join a clinical trial, an observational trial. You could advocate for your loved one. You could volunteer at HD Yo Camp. You could, you know, start your own fundraiser. You could like look into, you know, HDSA's advocacy focus. So I think what I always push it back on people, it's like, out of all those things, like what sounds fun? Because I think if you don't have fun being an advocate, you'll burn yourself out. You'll not enjoy it, and you'll dwindle yourself away where you won't be an advocate anymore. So maybe the question back to you, Zach, and you can think about it in 5 seconds and answer is like, is there something that truly brings you joy when we talk about Huntington's? Because then maybe we could shape something around that.
Yeah, I mean, like something that I've been thinking about a lot today already. Sort of, when I was a kid, I was involved with a lot of like young programs like HD and the MIA days and stuff like that. And I would really enjoy, you know, like being a part of those and giving back to kids who are now struggling with that. You know, like that would bring me a lot of joy and fulfillment. You know, but I don't really know exactly the process to start doing that.
Have you talked to Jenna and said, hey, can I volunteer at camp this summer?
No, not yet.
Okay, you got homework in the next 15 minutes.
Or talk to Jenna or Marianne about being a mentor for their mentor program.
Maybe not knowing isn't the best word. It's you know, taking that first step can be a bit intimidating.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, listen, my own story, like, it's not like I was like, yeah, I'm going to do a freaking TED Talk. Like, I wasn't like, yeah, let's just do this. You know, I was embarrassed, you know, in all honesty, being in public with my mom or having friends over. I didn't know how to talk to other people about it because I didn't want to feel judged, right? And that's just the reality, unfortunately, with Huntington's disease, because you don't really get it unless you get it. And I think that's what made me realize, you know what, at the end of the day, I'm going to do my best to explain what it is, to raise awareness and make a difference. But I really love basketball. So what can I do with basketball to help make a difference, raise awareness? And I'm like, I was talking to a buddy. I'm like, dude, let's just throw together a Run Through Basketball charity event. Like, I had no idea about HSA convention until like it was like 2 years later when I was volunteering at a different fundraiser, and they're like, hey, you got to come to convention. And I was like, sure. I missed NYA Day. I was like, I still didn't know anyone. I was there with my sister. We're like, I don't know what to do. And it was like the last day when I like started becoming more comfortable. I met BJ, and I was like, hey, let's stay in touch. And then, you know, by knowing BJ, like, here's some things you could do, right? But it was about kind of bouncing ideas off of one another and trying to figure out, what do I enjoy, but then what else can we do to make a change? I mean, I'm being honest, like the TED Talk, it was in my hometown. I was like, I'm just going to apply and just see what happens. And, you know, and I still don't believe my public speaking has improved, but I was never the greatest public speaker. It just took a lot of practice and energy. But at the end of the day, it was just kind of the right place at the right time. And then I'm like, how do I use that platform to do even more? But you're right, it is intimidating. Maybe it's starting with, you know, you mentioned to me about your major and what you're trying to do with like bioengineering. Did I get that right? Yes. So, you know, maybe it's starting by just reaching out, like you said, to some researchers. I mean, I'm not going to put Leslie and Edgar on the spot, but they probably work with researchers. I work with researchers. Like, I'm sure if I'll say for my sake, we can chat about it. I don't, again, don't want to put you guys on the spot, but like if you're like, hey, I just want to talk to someone about what it entails to do research in HD, right? Or I want to talk to a scientist and like just learn. Like, you know, it's just about asking, and then, you know, you never know, because people in the community are very friendly, or at least from my perspective.
No, I agree. People in this community are. It's just it is taking that first step, you know, and once you take that first step.
Yeah, it's like driving a car. You know, I'm sure Patty was very nervous when you first got behind the wheel.
She still is.
And now she's not as nervous. Maybe.
Not as
He's not driving home tomorrow, is he?
Well, he drives part of the way.
Oh, that's good.
But he's much better now than that fateful week.
Which one?
The one where you crashed both of our cars within a week.
Anyways,
all right. Yeah. Who's next? Sorry, Zach. You got your homework. Kathy.
Okay, when I go home and I think about this, I think, okay, I think I want to do this. I want to find more information. Where to go to the website, the HDSA. Where do you start once you go home and you say, I'd like to get involved with whichever one?
I mean, I'm biased, but I would say I would email Seth Rotberg, because I think sometimes websites are just clunky and hard to figure out, and they're not going to point you in the right direction. Where I want to hear, Kathy, what do you want to, like, what is it that sparked your interest? And I feel like we could probably connect you better than a website was. It's the human touch. Is there something you see here where you're like, I'm curious to learn more?
I'd like the community to know more.
The what?
I would like the community to know more, whether that means getting involved with doctors' offices. I'm a retired nurse, so I end up in that direction. I don't particularly want to do fundraising, so I'm not sure, but I'm going to do something. I just didn't know if I decide on something or have a question where I should go.
I would also reach out to the HD Reach folks. Like, they're creating this like North Carolina hub and spoke model, which I think they were in here talking about, and they're probably love for volunteers to go to health fairs, and maybe they can fund the booth. And you're advocating on behalf of HD Reach, but you're reaching a community that they don't have the bandwidth to do.
And is there? I know this is HIPAA and all that stuff, but like I'm in a military town. Is there a way to connect somehow people to know who wants to know more about Huntington's disease, or maybe people that are positive or have family members? Is there a way to find those people?
I mean, I would say real quick, I mean, the power of online and social media, like, there's a handful of Facebook groups, and you can either search, or you can, or if you don't feel comfortable with your name, you go on Reddit and you just type, hey, is anyone around this area that would love to, do a support group, or is there a support group? Because you never know, there could be someone else out there, right? That's like thinking about it too.
Yeah. We could always add to the Camp Lejeune commercials. Did you live in Camp Lejeune from 1912 to 14? Do you have Huntington's disease? Contact Kathy and join our lawsuit. Yeah, and I think some of the times too, like there's a lot of individuals who hold support groups around the country, and essentially my thought with event planning is you just have to sometimes pick a day, pick a time, and you got to show up, and you just got to hope somebody's there. And like we do that with HD Genetics and HD Reach. We hold it every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. It's a virtual support group. And Erica and Wes and I text, we're like, are you guys going to join? And we join. And our goal is if one person shows up, it's a success. And honestly, the support group turns into like a one-on-one session, but we don't know how that person found us, why they founded us, like what wraparound services they needed, but they showed up, and we're here for them. And I think every one of us, if you want to try to do that, like you can probably work with HD Reach or HDSA and just like, here's my date, here's my time, we're going to meet at Panera, I'm going to sit at this table. If no one shows up, I'm going to read a book. If someone shows up, I'm going to hug the heck out of them and try to get them connected. And maybe they show up next month and someone else shows up, and then you got 2, and then you got 5. And, but if you don't show up, like no one's going to show up. Yeah, totally.
Edgar, you raised your hand earlier.
Okay, well, the one fascinating thing was really both of your love for basketball was kind of like, your entree into, hey, we want to do something, right? You're tall. I assume you probably played basketball.
shot a couple hoops.
Shot a couple hoops. But that was always really, interesting, right? But it really kind of shows it's like, I don't really know where to start, but I know I like this, and, get a couple people together and figure it out, and then eventually it kind of takes on, a life of its own that now you look back, more years later, and you're like, oh, okay, like, that was really like that first piece that kind of, ultimately led me to go down this path, right?
Yeah, I think, we would say this to people back in Minnesota. My dad was a chapter president, and people would be like, we want to do a hoopathon. I'm like, why would you do a hoopathon? Like, do you love basketball, or do you have a connection? Like, that's what we use, because I played basketball and we'd invite my friends. But we'd be like, well, what's your connect? Like, what do you love? And it's like, then people, they're like, well, I love golf. We're like, well, then do a golf tournament. Or like, I love drinking alcohol. We're like, well, do a bar night. Like, people like, we have horses. Well, then do a horse night. We like bingo. We'll do bingo. So it's like, if you're not choosing something that's somewhat bringing you joy, you're going to get bored doing it. We've like, a lot of people have done hoopathons that I've seen, and they're just not basketball people. And it's more stress than it's worth. And it's like, find the passion, find the love, and do it. And I think all these things that Seth and I have done, like, we actually somewhat enjoy. Like, I like going and doing observational trials, and I like doing that FDA session, but like, I don't like writing. Like, there's no book I've written up here that I'm never going to write. So I think you have that skill. I don't have that skill. And I'm sure you have that skill. If you've started the book, you have it. The one thing though that you said is like, it sounded like you were looking for, what's the message? And I don't know if we have a perfect message that the HD community is like cohesively together on, where it's like, put this in your book. This is going to solve our problems. But it's something we should be thinking about and talking about and trying to come up with, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the HD community, and it's all good stuff, but I feel like we could better cohesively bring it all together to create that unified message.
During my research, one thing that keeps coming up is symptoms before the physical symptoms, cognitive, need to be treated, and people need to support so much for the physician is calling. That's kind of the underlying family destroyed because of behavioral situation that we have no control over.
And what I would say to that is, I mean, bringing that message to life even more, right? Of HD is not, I mean, originally it was called Huntington's chorea, right? Because everyone just thought it was movements, but now we know there's cognitive and behavioral, and those actually could potentially come years prior to those motor symptoms, or to be clinically diagnosed. So maybe that's the opportunity there, is the message of, here's the challenges, but here's also what's meaningful to the community. They really want support on X, Y, and Z, right? On the cognition, or on the mood swings, or on being able to just have a better quality of life. So, I think you're onto something.
There's a group, there's a few individuals, and they're advocating for that change. Like, typically, as Seth said, like, HD is diagnosed because of movements. Pretty much saying, like, all the data we have in the world is saying HD happens way before movements, so why are we still stuck in this old school diagnosis? We need to change the criteria. Well, guess what that takes? A lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of papers, a lot of like bureaucracy, but we probably need more people to speak up, to say, hey, we actually need to invest that time and energy. So maybe that could be an interesting part to the book.
And the other thing I'll just add is, like, you don't have to fundraise also. I'll admit, like, I actually don't like fundraising. It just happened. I thought, like, oh, basketball, it was easier for me. But in reality, it's like advocating and talking and connecting people to other people. Like talking with Zach, say, hey, how can I help you? Here, BJ wants to connect us with someone. It's like, how can I help? That's what I enjoy doing the most. That's kind of where my passion lies, but it's also bringing change when it's needed. Because, unfortunately, I was told when I first learned about it 15, 16 years ago, there's a treatment right around the corner. Well, here we are, 15, 16 plus years.
10 corners later.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the time, and I'm like, I'm still waiting, right? And so,
Somebody's GPS is really messed up.
I know. I'm still using MapQuest over here. But I think at the end of the day, right, it's like I can wait for others, or you can take action in your own hands and say, what's not only going to help me, but help the larger community, whether it's a book, or I'm going to get into research, or Kathy's like, I want to do a support group because I want to connect with others who may not have anyone else, and that's going to help with their quality of life. And maybe you end up meeting someone who's like, I'm going to now start a fundraiser. I'm going to go advocate on the Hill, right? You never know where that can lead. And so I think that's where it's taking those smaller steps. Don't feel like you have to do like a big thing, right? Maybe it's just talking to one person about it first before you're doing this huge, event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts or questions before the big raffle?
I think the last thing you said is probably the most important, is that people might be scared about getting involved because they think they have to do something big. But it can be as simple as driving someone to a meeting. When I was 17 and living in the Bay Area, there were no resources. There was nobody talking about Huntington's in 1983.
Mm-hmm.
Someone, I think it was my therapist, found this meeting that was in Napa. How am I going to get from Oakland to Napa? I didn't have a driver's license. She found this couple. The lady was at risk for Huntington. They didn't know me. They showed up at my door, drove me 2 hours to Napa to attend this support group. And for the first time in my life, literally the first time in my life, I met other people who knew what Huntington's was, because my mom was long gone. That ride with those strangers, I don't even remember their names, was everything. And it set me on a path that shaped the rest of my life. Giving someone a ride, listening to what they have to say.
Yeah, or like, just to end on that, like, I'm sure a lot of you are active on social media. If you're not, it's not a big deal. But if you are, like, if you see someone that you relate to, just reach out, like, hey, that's cool that you're into that. Like, especially part of the HD community, right? Just exactly how we met, right? Oh, you like basketball? Great, me too. Like, let's talk. Or if someone went through a situation, is going through a situation you went through, maybe you comment on the post and be like, hey, like, I know what that's about, like, or here's what helped me out. Like, always happy to chat, right? Because that could honestly make the difference in someone's life. And then that could also help you get to be like, oh, I can do this. This isn't as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I know I'm a better advocate because I know Seth. It's easy because I can kind of lean on him to say, hey, what do you think of this stupid idea? And he can say, I like it, or it's stupid. But it gives me a lot of confidence of having, he's my advocate buddy. And maybe that's a message too, is find your buddy, find your HD buddy, or you're someone who you can relate to, talk to, bounce your ideas off of, and go from there. But thanks everybody for the time and coming today in general and coming to the session. And
hopefully you win a raffle.
That's right.